Hi, Megan.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Really excited to chat with you. I absolutely love Poker Face. So,
Oh, fantastic. Great. I'm glad that you did like it.
yeah, I've been rewatching it like over and over again to prepare for these interviews, and it's been like, a fun. It's been fun. It's not. I don't hate it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. It's a show that you can watch over and over again because there's so many layers and details that you didn't necessarily pick up the first time.
Yeah, I was actually that's something I have in my questions to ask you, but it seems like such a dream show to work on, I feel like as a production designer because so many different locations, so many different characters. Was that like a fun challenge that you were excited about when you took on this project?
Absolutely. The fact that every episode was going to be different and she gets to meet different characters and she's in a different part of the states. Uh, my biggest concern at the beginning was the schedule, how we were going to achieve the travel end of it during an episodic schedule. But it did, all the stars aligned and it worked out really well. So yeah, I was very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, well, you should be. It's amazing. And I read that you were basically in the Hudson Valley the whole time. That like tell me about that. How did that I mean, were you able to make these locations feel so authentic but be in one location?
Well, when we first figured out that it was going to be in the Hudson Valley, being familiar with upstate New York, I had a feeling that it was doable. I wasn't sure about all the details, and we didn't have all the scripts in at that point, but we kind of knew the outline of her journey and where it was going to go. So, thank God we had such a fantastic location manager and his crew. They really turned over every stone to find what we were looking for. And yeah, I had such a great crew that we were able to turn certain things into other things. And, visual effects also helps too.
My favorite episode is I think well, there's so many episodes that are so great, but like the one that really was like that we're like, oh, I love this show is the stall, the Texas barbecue episode.
Yeah,
And I was thinking that this probably had to be difficult because it's mostly outdoors, if you think about it. And I
right.
know that sometimes that can be hard with production design. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how what it was like working on that episode.
It's interesting. A lot of people liked that episode. We were scouting for a very long time, looking for a landscape that felt and we could turn into Texas. And, a kind of a dusty road. And, Ryan had something very specific in mind. So we looked for several weeks. And when we landed on that location, we realized that, yeah, we had to turn everything into this barbecue world. And it was in, I believe, Wappinger Falls, which wasn't too far from where our production office was.
Wow.
And yeah, and so we modified an existing bar restaurant, but we literally built everything else. Our great set decorator found a barbecue purveyor up there, and he and a bunch of other vendors provided all the authentic outdoor smokers and yeah, it was challenging, I think, for a shooting crew because of the weather, and we had to get a certain kind of lighting, and so I think the timing was a little tricky, but it all worked out really well. And animals always present their own challenge, and so I think that was another element we had to negotiate. But yeah, it turned out really well. All the actors were fantastic, and in the end, the weather did cooperate with us, thankfully.
Yeah. Good. I was thinking about in that episode how George's trailer feels very lived in and it has to be so much fun to I mean, usually I feel like with shows you're probably just working on one type of the main character, but this one we're meeting new
Right,
people all the time.
right.
Yeah, what was it like putting together these also these characters that are ill-fated in many ways?
Right.
Yeah, what was it like putting that together with that particular set piece?
Well, I think overall, all the episodes presented such interesting characters and gave us a lot of opportunity to do the layering of their history and help support the story, which is visually, what do we want to put in there that helps tell the story of how long they've been there and what their journey has been. So for his trailer, that was a lot of fun. Once again, the set decorator, Kathy Marshall, did a fantastic job of kind of giving us a highlight of who he was and what his journey was. And so I thought it worked out really well. I mean, a lot of it was in the dark, so we had to sort of focus on what was going to be seen and bring things forward. And we worked with the DP, and we talked about the lighting and where they were going to shoot, which angle. So all of those kind of get catered to the storyline, which is in the end, the most important is to visually support the story. Um, so people get a sense of what's happening and where it may go and where they've been. So all those elements are really important for, I think, what we do visually.
Yeah, definitely. Another episode I was thinking about was the Orpheus Syndrome episode.
Right.
Between we've got Cherry Jones's space, which is like very sleek and minimalist kind of, and then we've got Arthur's space, Nick Nolte's characters, which is just like got all this stuff to absorb.
Right.
What was it like working on that one?
That one was fantastic as well. That presented a different kind of challenge. That script and the outline we had early on, and we knew that we had to jump on that sooner than later because of so much layering to show 25 plus years of his workspace and what that needed to look and feel like. So we started very early on, and that was the case for a lot of the episodes, that we had the timing of what was priority and what we knew was going to take a longer period to get all the set dressing and the design aspect approved, and to figure out if it hit all the notes for the story, which ultimately is the most important, for Ryan. And he's so generous creatively to sort of give us the leeway. But for Orpheus, yeah, so Arthur's Barn was the biggest challenge, to get that layered look and to make it feel authentic, which is always the big goal that we're trying to achieve, that it wasn't a set that we put together in a few days or a few weeks. And then for Cherry Jones's character, we wanted to contrast her space versus Arthur's space, which is much more clean line, right angle, and very minimalist and more hard edged. And
Like her
because she
haircut.
has so much to, right, so she has so much to conceal as a character. She wouldn't have a lot of things displayed because she's sort of hiding behind her persona, which is very controlled and what's the word I'm looking for? Restrained, I
That's what I was
guess.
thinking too. Yeah. I was thinking
Yeah.
that's yeah, that really comes across too with those you get so much from the from the production design with those characters, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
Um I also wanted to ask you about episode 9, another one of my favorites, Escape from Shit Mountain, which is such an incredible episode of television. And first struck by the look of the hotel. It's like creepy. It's also
Right.
beautiful. What kind of decisions did you have to make with this particular episode?
So for episode 9, we shot that simultaneously at the beginning with episode 1. So I'm kind of partial to the first two because we were trying to figure out sort of the arc of the whole series. Even though she was traveling, what do we want the show to feel like? And so episode 9 was fantastic. That was a lot of fun. That motel, or what we call the lodge, that was the look of it, the spatial aspect, the scale, all of that was determined based on the exterior that we found of the motel. And that was actually a location that we then also built the facade. We've
Wow.
duplicated it on stage for all the ins and outs of when we go inside the lodge. So, yeah, I mean, story wise, we're supposed to feel that, yes, this is something that he inherited. His parents had it. It's been around for a while. So it needs to feel a little dusty and old and kind of a time capsule, that they didn't update a lot of what they had. And it was just an accumulation of the years and their history. So, when Trey comes along, he's all slick, and that kind of contrasts from his space once again, which
Yeah.
is very, very moneyed. And yeah, I mean, once we figured out what his location was, then we sort of found the motel and then built off of that.
Wow, that's so interesting. I have to ask, did you work on the spot? Did you like the spot where they bury the bodies? Was that something that you were a part of too?
Yes, that was I think the biggest component that we transitioned and evolved, and we went a few different directions and finally landed on that. But we were originally going to shoot that at a location and realized logistically that didn't make sense. And it felt, because it had to be so controlled and there were so many aspects to that and a lot of revisiting, that it made sense to do it on stage. So when we picked a location for it to sort of be based on, we duplicated that on stage with a built set that was then later augmented with the surrounds of with visual effects. So, and then the interior of the hollow we built and carved. Our scenic department did a fantastic job. Um, we don't see so much of it in the final coverage because she's dark,
Yeah.
or she comes awake in the dark. So um, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. And it took a few steps to figure out with visual effects and posts, like what is the best way we can achieve this in the timeline that we have. So yeah, all those elements kind of feed into what gets decided.
That's so fascinating, and, like, it's so creepy what you guys did with the spot. It's oh, gives me the willies. Thank you so much again, and,
Thank you.
yeah, have a wonderful day.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Thank
you
you.
too. Bye.
Bye.